Crafty Plans. Welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, welcome. Today is the day. It is time. I am ready to put my annual goals into my MAKSELIFE planner. This is honestly so exciting. I'm feeling so good about 2025 right now, and I can't wait to get this all laid out on the page. This video is actually part two of my goal setting series. In part one, I took my compass assessment, I set my intentions, and I also did some goals brainstorming using the annual goals toolkit from MAKSELIFE. That was a new product that came out this year from MAKSELIFE. It's just like a package of worksheets to help with your goal setting process. So I've been using that in conjunction with everything that's in the Life Planner and also the 2024 Reflections Notebook to kind of bring that all together and craft that into my annual goals. I have a reflections video up as well on my channel, so I will link that down in the description below, along with part one of this series, in case you want more of an understanding of where I'm coming from with my goals for this year. So in part one, we set up our life compass here by taking the assessment, kind of reflecting on that, working through these worksheets to brainstorm goal ideas, how I wanted to feel at the end of the year, and kind of turn that into themes for goals. Also keeping in mind my personal values, which I filled this out in part one as well. Then I kind of took all of this information and I fed it into Pi, which is an AI app that MAKSELIFE actually recommended on their goal setting masterclass this year, and kind of used that as a sounding board to work through all of my ideas, get some feedback back, get some help with the phrasing, kind of turn everything more into like these longer goal setting statements, given where I'm at now and given where I want to be. And I found the process and using that and using AI so extremely helpful to my goal setting process this year. Really, it felt like a brand new process. I still feel like everything is 100% coming from me, but it made it so much easier to just kind of like work through little phrasing things or think about this other thing that you might have forgotten about. It's really very much like having a sounding board and an editor there to help you out. So I definitely recommend playing around with that app. If you haven't already, definitely watch the MAKSELIFE video. Sierra gave a lot of prompts to help get you started, and a lot of like tips and tricks for using it. And I'm also going to be carrying that forward into the year and using that to help me continue on in this planner writing with my goals, but also to help me work on my goals and organization and systems. There are seriously so many good ideas in that MAKSELIFE video. For me, that's just a total must watch. We also set my intentions here in the planner. I actually really love how this page looks. Did some little decorations on there as well. And then offline, I continued working with all of that, continued brainstorming, using the ideas that I generated in these compass assessment worksheets, but also just in my chats with AI and in my reflections process. And I worked that into a list of goals. And then I took those goals, I worked on the phrasing, I played around with things, and then I mapped out how I want to actually put them on the page. So this is like my rough draft for goals. It's got like abbreviations and not neat handwriting and all of that stuff, but basically just sketching out how I want everything to fit on the page. And then between that and then just using the iPad and using some of the digital tools MAKSELIFE has, I've got like the exact phrasing of how I want things to go in here and the layout of how I want things to go in here. So now it is time to actually go ahead and put the goals in here. This video is going to be voiceover. That way when I'm writing, I can focus on how things are sitting on the page and using my best good handwriting. And then in the voiceover, I can chat you through what my actual goals are going to be for this coming year, but also my process and how I use those AI tools to really help me arrive at the goals and like the final wording that's going on the page. After I get everything on the page, I'll be filling out these from the annual toolkit with a little bit of lettering for my word of the year and also crafting my personal mission statement. If all of that sounds good, you can just hang tight right here and I'm gonna throw it over to the voiceover and jump in with these goals. Diving right into the goals, and I am writing these in the planner in the MAKSELIFE order, so personal first, then fun and recreation, etc. This is not the order that I set goals in. I mentioned this in the last video and I've definitely said this before, but I always find it easiest to work with like the low-hanging fruit or life areas where you like kind of enjoy setting goals more in, or they're a little bit easier to set goals in. I like to start easier and then work my way harder. That's just always kind of how I've done the process. I also took a lot of breaks. I really focused so much on my handwriting while I was doing this, and I'm very impressed with how my handwriting turned out. That being said, I was like very in control with the actual handwriting and the pen, and I just went so hard with the markers and just like did so much damage with the markers. Just to be honest, it's really kind of funny. I love how this turned out, especially this first page spread, like the one that has personal through family and relationships. The other one on the next set of spreads, I did go a little crazy with the dot marker. You will see, I think it looks cute in the end. I've got it to a point that I liked, but I definitely like this first set of pages a little bit better. At 2 points in this video, I will use the wrong color marker to start highlighting. Don't worry, I fix everything. But yeah, it was just a lot of pens, a lot of markers going on, a lot of craziness with the markers, while I was so focused on my handwriting that I completely forgot to be careful with the markers as well. But it all worked out in the end. Also for my goals this year, especially while I was putting them in the planner, it's something kind of in between like a mind map set of goals. If you've ever seen how Taylor from Tattoo Teacher's Plan sets her goals, she does like a lot of mind map stuff. And I've always really liked the way that it looked, but it never really worked for my goals. I always do like some kind of parsing on the page, but it's definitely a little bit more mind mappy this year, especially on that second spread. So I do have like some phrasing, but I did do like a lot of just like keywords and things like that. And I think one of the things that enabled me to do that kind of setup is I'm actually keeping a set of the longer goal phrases in my iPad in the digital companion notebooks that has like this really long I will statements, and it also has more feelings in it, which is really interesting because I don't usually, the thing on the bottom of each of the goals that says, how will my life improve by reaching these blank goals? That part has like never really resonated with me. But this year I really love that. And I think that is from like all of the stuff I got out of AI, which had a lot more feeling statements than I would typically write. And I was like, yeah, that's how I want to feel. So it was really just kind of like jiving with me this year. And I really like that a lot. So I did end up doing the feeling statements for each of the goals this year at the bottom there, and I've got like longer ones in the iPad as well. I'll read you some examples, of course. And then the past couple of years I've done like a focus and done like another keyword or a word of the year for each of the goals categories, and I decided not to do that this year. I really am just focused on balance, which is my word of the year, and just want that through everything. So I didn't do anything for the focus, although on some of them, if you look at the page, like in the personal category, the first thing I wrote was organizational systems, and that's really the focus, but I put it right big in the center of the page rather than up in the focus bar. So a little bit different of a goals kind of layout and setup than I've done in the past couple of years in here. And yeah, I was a little bit worried about the spacing because this is my first year in the flagship. I've used the companion notebooks until now, but I honestly didn't really notice it. I had like so much more text that I was working with that I really feel like I needed this extra space this year. And still I felt like I was kind of starting to run out of space, and that's how I ended up with this more mind mappy thing and the like longer written out goals in my iPad. But this is going to be like my primary goals that I'm going to work with. And then just if I feel like I'm struggling, or if I feel like I want to revisit those longer statements, I will have those longer statements to look back on and set up already in a digital planner. But again, the physical planner and the flagship planner are very much going to be like my main everyday writing in it, checking in with it, making my to-do lists, all of those things. I am planning to use more of the digital planners for reflections, and especially not necessarily the weekly reflections, but especially on some of like the monthly and quarterly reflections that I plan to do. I just find that's a lot easier to be able to type instead of having to like write everything out. So I'm glad that I'll have my goals in the iPad as well in case I want to look at them digitally while I'm working on that. And the other thing that's really good and cool about that is that my planner pretty much lives in my office. I don't typically take that like around with me. And the MAKSELIFE planner in general is like a very big, meaty planner. So that usually stays in my office open on either my filming desk, on my stand, or on my work desk. But I don't like typically take that out of my office. And most of my journaling at this point, I've been journaling for like 15-20 minutes before bed every night, just in my bed on the iPad, and it's been so amazing. I'm just like absolutely in love with that right now. So I like having my goals, and I've spent a ton of time like just right before bed thinking about my goals, and it's honestly been so motivating, and I'm just really, really into that right now. So it's great to have the goals in my iPad as well, even though that's like not the main place I'm going to be, writing them down or working on them, but just to have them to reference while I'm journaling has been really, really helpful. So that is my general goals and general setup of this planner preamble. Now let's dive into the personal category. So for the personal category, my focus is on organizational systems, and I kind of have like 4 goals of that. I'm not going to read everything word for word, but basically it's just being consistent with using my planner, with using planning tools and routines, digital tools, and just have a better management on our lives and our schedules. If you saw my reflections video, you'll know this is the one of 2 life areas that I feel slipped the most last year while I was so focused on the work and learning category. So I really want to put a big effort into getting back to planning and getting back to routines and using all of those skills that I've developed over the year to just live a more organized life and to feel more organized as I move throughout like my life and my days. So the top left goal is specifically more about planning, and then the bottom one is more about like crafting those routines. And then on the right hand side, we've got, consistency over perfection and also embracing the creativity of planning. And then as well, I moved social media back to this category, and I wrote social media is a tool for motivation, accountability, community, and connection. And I really, really love that. And that's what I really want to focus on my social media this year. So then for an example of how things are a little bit different in what I set up in my iPad, that same social media goal in my iPad reads, I will continue to grow and enjoy my social media presence, using it as a tool for accountability, motivation, and connection with others. I will approach content creation as a fun hobby, maintaining a healthy balance between my social media activities and my professional work by not treating social media growth as a top priority. And I think that kind of sums up with where I'm at with channel stuff right now. I love it. It's so much fun. It brings me so much joy, but it's not my job. I do have like an actual job at this point, my own business, and that has to come first when I've got that time split going on in my days between content creation and my work and everything like that. So the goals on my iPad are all like longer I will feel kind of statements, and I really just kind of narrowed down the words and focused more on the keywords when I was putting it in the physical planner. And it actually ends up being 5 goals in my iPad because I wanted just like a little bit more expansion on like the creativity and hobbies aspect from that top right hand goal. So I did kind of pull that out a little bit separately, but basically we're just focusing on those organizational systems, and I'm really going to be focused on incorporating more of the digital skills and digital tools into my life to just kind of like enhance all of that organization and make it a little bit easier for my husband to help out with that, because he's obviously not in my planner, but he's very much in our Google Calendar. And now I'm well into the fun category, so let's get into that. I have 3 goals in the fun category this year. The first is that scheduled fun. This has been on my goals since I've started MAKSELIFE. At this point, it's a maintenance goal, but this is the goal that I will say has changed my life and my overall level of happiness the most. And it's basically just making sure we always have plans. There's something to do, activities that the kids can do, but basically just trying to get us out of the house as much as possible and enjoying our free time together. This mostly impacts like weekends, but also like holiday breaks from schools and different things like that. So this is my number one goal, especially if you've got little kids. It's just so essential. We don't want to be trapped in the house. Just get out and go do literally anything. It's just more fun that way. And then my next goal, which is a new one, is this fun at home and just trying to have more activities and things for the kids to do while we're at home, more family activities, and also more things to encourage like independent play. Like I can't tell you how many times the kids a day say, I'm bored, there's nothing to do, even though we have a house full of stuff to do. Now, some of that is just kids, obviously, but we are working on it, and it's definitely something I want to focus on this year. And then the last goal is travel and adventure. I mentioned this in my reflections, and I think in part 1 as well. We had a ton of vacations last year and had like so much fun with travel, but a lot of that, the planning was kind of done the year before, and we actually don't have anything planned at all for this year. So especially in the beginning of the year, I want to sit down, look at our schedule, really think out when our travel is going to be, and really start planning some some of that. We had some fun last minute adventures too this year, but I think, planning like a larger trip and things like that, and we had 2 big trips last year, definitely takes some more time. So I want to really make sure I jump in on that. And then my feeling statement, which I kind of compiled all of these feeling statements based on like all of the different things. Like all of my goals when they came out of AI had some kind of like why or feeling in them. So I tried to sum those together, take them out of the actual goal statements and sum them together into the life improved statements at the bottom of the planner. So for fun and recreation, it's we will enjoy life and make the most of our time together. And I think that's really nice. And like I said, this is a part of the process that has never resonated with me before, but this year I'm super into it. And I love that. This is year 4 for me in MAKSELIFE, but I'm still learning new things. I'm still getting new things out of this goal setting process and like still engaging with MAKSELIFE in new ways. And I think that's really, really powerful. And it just really speaks to like how amazing MAKSELIFE is and how amazing this goal setting framework is. You're always going to be learning, and there's always more that you can do and more that you can learn. But in the meantime, you're still getting to live this wonderful and best life that you can. So to give you an example of like how the AI phrases things and how I've put it in more of my digital planner. So for that vacation one, that whole like section of mind map goals there gets translated into, I will proactively plan and execute a diverse range of travel experiences to enrich our family life and my relationship with my husband. By being intentional in scheduling these trips, including one significant family vacation, a trip for just my husband and me, and several smaller adventures and excursions throughout the year, I will ensure that we make the most of our time together and create lasting memories. So that's encompassing like the feeling statements, what I actually want to plan, and all of that. And I feel like that's kind of, it says the same thing on my planner page. It just feels a lot more me to have it kind of drawn out with the color and the bubbles and the arrows and everything. But I still have the longer phrase and the why in a different space, especially if I'm starting to like feel down on it or feel like I'm not making enough progress or that I haven't devoted the time to it. I can revisit that longer statement to kind of hype myself up a little bit more. And that statement that I just read out from the iPad is very much from AI, but it's not like a first draft from AI. I'm like, okay, let's talk about a goal about travel plans. And then I'm like, oh, and I want this trip and this kind of trip. And, then it feeds me back something. And I'm like, well, I really also want to focus on the planning element because that's how the travel happens. And then it kind of incorporates that. And then it eventually spits out, a whole sentence. And then I kind of adjust that sentence as needed and remove or adjust any words that don't feel like me and replace them with words that I like a little bit better. And that's kind of how we, meaning me and Pi the AI, arrive at that goal. And I am still working on the final longer phrasing in my digital planner. Right now, that's actually what I've been doing before bed journaling lately. It's about half done. I'm through work and learning, so actually a little bit less than half done, but I do have all of the longer AI statements. I'm just like working on the final editing and layout on the page. And if you want to see any of my digital spreads, just let me know in the comments. I'm happy to post some of that as well. I've already shared some of that from the reflections and other things like on Instagram, but I'm happy to share some of those digital spreads for the goals as well. Anyway, for work and learning, I love how I put this on the page. So up at the top, I'm talking about this goal that is around creating a rubric to better evaluate work projects. This is something that I've been thinking about for a while that I think is really going to help me, and I don't feel like I have the words to put this into a goal. And AI was like, rubric. And I was like, oh, why didn't I think of that word? I've been thinking about how to evaluate projects and the word rubric never occurred to me. So I was really happy with that. So that's going to be one of the things that I'm working on pretty early in the year. It's not like an emergency. I've already got my projects lined up for January. So that's like a good cushion base. But then from committing to new projects, stuff that's going to come up that I'm going to have to commit to for later months and stuff, I really want that rubric in place so that I can really use it for the full year. And all of this, my other work goals are also around this. Basically, I want to keep working on cool projects and have interesting experiences at work and agreeing to interesting experiences at work, but I don't want to get so overwhelmed. And basically this whole last year, I felt like I was either so overcommitted I couldn't function, or so undercommitted I had nothing to do, and it was just like a kind of vicious cycle, which is very much in the nature of freelance work, but I'm trying to smooth that out. I have some projects that are like always projects that help with that, but I'm really trying to smooth out my work schedule a little bit more this year, and I think the rubric and just having a more holistic way to like approach whether I agree to a project or not will really help with that. And then my other goals, which will assist in that effort, are around being like a little bit more organized with my work files. That's actually going to come up in the financial category. Again, just like applying that same general organization, life skills organization that I have in my regular life, and applying that a little bit more to my business, especially digitally for my business, right? Just having better organization on that, I think will also help make things a lot easier and smoother. And then also, you know, being aware that I have a tendency to procrastinate, especially when I'm trying to avoid something, setting more internal deadlines and actually utilizing those internal deadlines and trying to avoid those procrastination and really working on those skills, which I also think will help a lot with feeling more balanced about my work. Because if I book something in a timely fashion and then procrastinate to the last minute, of course I'm going to get overwhelmed when I'm trying to cram like a 1 month project into a week and a half. You know, I need to be better on myself about that, and definitely part of the issues that I had last year were of my own making. It wasn't just that I overcommitted myself, which I did at points, but it was also that I overcommitted myself and then waited till the last minute to start something and then had to work so much to make sure I met the external deadline instead of using internal deadlines to help me meet the external deadline without losing my mind, which hopefully I will be doing this year. So I use the arrows here and then also on my other goals as well to kind of like connect different goals and goals themes together, and I actually just like really love that. Like I said, I love how this page turned out, and actually just looking at the next page, it's definitely a little bit busier. I had like a lot more to say on everything except for financial, but I do actually end up liking how it all looks together as well, so that's good. Anyway, it's important, I think, to like the way that your goal spread looks, because if I like the way something looks, I'm more willing to revisit it, and the more I look at it, the more engaged with it I feel. So I'm really hoping that helps, you know, kind of keep me motivated on the goals, but also back on my intentions page, which I love the intentions page setup I did this year. So I'm hoping that helps keep me more connected to my word of the year this year as well. So on family and relationships, I have like a couple of different goals here, and the first one up at the top I'm going to do in this kind of mind map style. So the theme is to grow and adapt my parenting toolbox, and I basically wrote some ideas for things we want to focus on in that, and also just like things that I think are important to that, like effective communications, clear expectations, all the things like that. So I really love that goal in general, but I also really like the way it looks and sits on the page. And then the phrase beneath that, I wrote to meet my children where they're at, provide a supportive family environment, and help them grow and become more independent. So that's really like the reasoning for the goal above. So on this one, I felt like it was really important to have that on the page rather than just in the digital version of the planner. I really want to focus on like kind of why we're doing the parenting things we're doing, and just, you know, being a little bit more thoughtful about the way I approach some of these things. And then the next goal there is just around my husband, basically continue being a partner and a co-parent with him, but also, you know, also honoring our relationship outside of our kids, and, you know, the fact that he's just also my wonderful husband in addition to being my co-parent. This was another one too where I felt like AI was really helpful for giving me the words to an idea that I had, like things like effective communication that's coming out of AI rather than my brain. I'm like talking about what I want from parenting and what I want for my relationship with the kids. Feeds me back effective communication. And I'm like, that's really helpful, because I don't know that I would have thought of that phrase on my own, but it's still my idea. Like the AI is not prompting you, you're explaining what you want, and then it's putting it into some really nice packaging. And I think that that's one of my favorite things about using AI so far. I feel like it saved me a lot of time writing my goals. Like that time that I would have spent thinking about phrasing, so much of that was shortened by AI, which is great because I spent like probably 3 times as long as usual on the annual reflections process this year, and was still able to complete my goals, in the timeline that I had originally thought about, and before the new year, which you do not need to have your goals set by January 1. There is no rule of that. For the purposes of the channel and for sharing, and just because I like to have mine done before the end of the year. So in the health and wellness category, this is the category where I always like struggle to write meaningful goals. I just have a lot of history with this category. And I went full on mind map in here, and this is, I think, my favorite goals that I've ever done in this category. I think it was easier for me in this to say less and have it be more meaningful. I feel like I either always set like almost no goals in this category, or something where I'm like really trying not to push myself. I don't know. This just feels a lot better. So the whole thing is focused on the phrase at the top, which says promote my well-being by focusing on how I feel in my body and having the energy to enjoy life. And then I wrote in the mind map space like a ton of different things that kind of trickle down from there, like how I feel in my body connects to movement and exercise and good sleep, and then good sleep connects to a relaxing evening routine. So all of it kind of flows from one idea to the next. This is an area where AI was like helpful in coming up with some of the ideas. I already had some of the ideas, but I really kind of shifted away from that to put it on the page and went with like almost no phrases right on this one, and just like a lot more ideas. This whole page, this whole set of spreads, these 4 goal areas definitely have a lot more of a mind map feel than the first set of pages, but I think that this turned out really well, and I'm really happy with the way the goal turns out. There's going to be a lot of back and forth with like the markers and adding things with the pen, like decoration wise. I just kept not being like happy with how it looked on the page. And so I just kind of kept revisiting it and trying to change things and adding more to it. Ultimately, do I wish it was maybe a little bit less busy? Perhaps, but I think it turned out really well in the end. And then the spiritual and personal growth category, the first thing I do with the color is use the wrong marker. So that was the first one where I used the wrong marker. And then I don't end up correcting that until towards the end, because I didn't realize it for a really long time. I just kept looking at it and thinking like, why does this look so weird on the page? Like, what did I do wrong? Like, what is wrong with this? And it took me forever to realize that I had used the wrong marker, and that was like what was throwing off the balance. But in the end, we end up with some busy spreads here, but I really like the goals, and I do actually really end up liking the way that they look on the page. They've definitely grown on me. They are very busy, and I kind of use the dots as like background there. I am dangerous with a dot marker. I just have so much fun with it, and I just feel like I keep adding more, keep adding more. I need a little like Coco Chanel mantra in my life. Just don't put that last thing on the page there, maybe. Unfortunately, unlike accessories, it's a lot harder to remove the pen or marker from the page than it is to take something off of your outfit. In this category, I also did really try and focus on what Sierra said during the goal setting masterclass series that they did this year about internal versus external goals. And I did try and like keep these goals very internally focused. Sierra specifically called out that this is an area where people really set a lot of external goals. And I really had that in the back of my mind, because I do think that that is like kind of, especially for me, and just given my history with some of the diet culture and different things, and that can fall into this category. I feel like setting external goals feels really, really yucky to me in this category. So I really tried to focus on how I feel and just like having energy, because I felt like having energy was something I was really lacking last year. And some of that is mental, but some of that is definitely physical. So that's what I tried to keep my focus on. And for my how I will improve my life statement, I wrote, I will develop a healthy and sustainable lifestyle that enables and supports me to live life to its fullest. So that's kind of what we're keeping in mind here, and just working on building out some of those routines, using the ones I have, respecting bedtime. That's going to be a big focus, especially in the beginning of the year, because I feel like I am not quite there yet, and I have definitely not always been respecting my bedtime, and that was a huge struggle last year, and then I'm just so tired. I am a pretty high sleep needs individual, so I think it's really, really important to me. Like I am a person who needs like a full 8 hours, if not more. I honestly think that I usually sleep more like 8.5 hours a night. And I do feel like I physically very much need that. So it is important to go to bed on time, because the kids are waking up whether or not I stayed up all night reading. So in the spiritual and personal growth category, and I do feel like this category is one of my focuses for the year, because I feel like this really ties back to my word of the year, which is balance, which is what I was writing on the page, but also just like the overarching theme of like maintaining my systems, doing a better job with with the organizational systems, better balancing work and life balance and all of those things. And even though there are goals in the different categories for them, this is the life area that I feel like is really tying that all together. And I focus a lot on like mental health and well-being and mindset mantras in this category. I always have. So I do feel like that kind of is pulling everything together. And this goals category, this life area, has my overarching theme for the year, or just kind of best encompasses my theme, my word of the year. So up at the top, I do have that balance, productivity, and self-care, and then I've mind mapped what that kind of means, or the things that I use to get there, like asking for help, focusing on my mindset, not overcommitting, scheduling rest, fostering self-discovery, using accountability tools, setting deadlines, time management tools, all of those things which kind of map into that balance. And then down at the bottom, I've got two kind of separate goals from that. One around creativity and journaling. And that I would also like to take a little bit digital this year, as I've already spoken about, not just on the journaling, but I'm hoping to do like a little bit more art on the iPad as well, just with the Apple Pencil and everything. And then the other one, generosity and community building. So that is my kind of goal around volunteering and what I'm hoping to get out of my volunteering commitments and donations and all of that kind of things. In the financial category, I have 3 goals. I've spoken about this at length, but this is the life area that I am the strongest in, and that predates MAKSELIFE. All of my goals in this category are really maintenance goals. So I just have to kind of review our family's long-term financial plan. That's not something that I anticipate will take a lot of effort. We have very well organized on that, and my husband is also the one who takes more of a lead on that, but just go over everything, make sure everything is good and that we don't want to change anything there, and change it if we do. Maintain and utilize our short-term tracking stuff. We had to switch up our short-term tracking finances like tracker last year because the website that we were using is no more. It was mint.com. I'm still really sad about that, but we're happy with the new tool, and we kind of expanded our spreadsheets to accommodate, so all good there, just maintaining that. And then the one that I do want to improve on this year is my business tracking, and particularly around some of my business expenditures, to make taxes a lot easier when they come up once a year. So putting a little effort in throughout the year to make one big project a lot easier now that it's coming up, and it's like right on my mind anyways. But that's it for the financial category. So I jumped into the home category with the pen and started writing there before I'll go back and add the color in. Again, I was just like really struggling with how things looked on the page at this point, and especially because I still hadn't figured out that like my dots and my colors were in the wrong color on the other page. So anyway, I did just kind of jump around a lot here at the end. But in the physical environment category, which I always think of as home in my mind, but it does include your car as well. I do not do as good of a job taking care of my car as I do my home, but it's also just not something that bothers me, so I don't know. Anyway, you could take of that what you will. But I have like kind of 2 sections of goals in this area, and did like kind of little mind maps on both of them. The first is around cleaning and maintenance routines, kind of fixing up whatever we're going to call the master calendar, because I don't like that name anymore. And that's just like, when are all these routine maintenance and deep cleaning things supposed to happen, and who are the service providers we use for that? So just kind of fixing that up a little, being a little bit more, having that, whatever that system ends up being called, which I will share with you once I have that, having that a little bit more incorporated into my regular planners as well, so that I'm making sure that it's happening. And then outsourcing as much as possible, or as much as we feel comfortable outsourcing. I think we're at that point, and I don't really want to do deep cleaning, except for maybe in the fridge, which I do find really satisfying. So just bringing in outside providers to help more with that, I think will take a lot of that burden off. And then the other side of the goals is our home project. So we're in the middle of this living room maker, finish that out. That'll be a Q1 focus. And then kind of update our project list, create a more in-depth project list, and then decide if we want to do anything from it. I want to have that project list handy, whether or not we do any major construction projects this year, which I'm leaning towards not, just like given inflation and the quotes that we got pretty recently, except for maybe that outdoor patio one. But anyway, just having that list and knowing that it's not like a list for this year, it's a list for like the next 5 years or whatever it is, and then being able to work through that when time, desire, and budget allows, all of that kind of stuff. And then, you know, taking a little bit more of a seasonal or regular approach to updating some of the decor and photos, especially. I would like to update like the pictures of the kids that we have up around the house, and I think they're skewing pretty young at this point, and get some more photos printed and all that good stuff. I'm not going to say full on seasonal decor because that never really works out for me, but you know, just having like keeping an eye on things a little bit more, ordering pictures more frequently as well there. So then I used a little bit of washi at the top and just kind of finished up with the decorations. I finally added in the boulder pen to the bubbles, and I actually really like that way that looks now, and I think that brings it all together. That's definitely what it was missing after I overcommitted on the dots from the dot markers, but I really like the way that this ends up taking shape. I originally was doing something really complicated with the washi, but I ended up just pulling it up and then just going with like the 2 lines that are the colors for the life areas on each page, going over that annual goals, and I used the lighter version of each of the color. That way you can still see the word annual goals written on it. And then just given my confusion that I had during my reflections video, I went ahead and wrote 2025 on both of the pages. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about with that, on my reflections vlog, I had my 2024 and my 2023 goals out, and I kept mixing up which was which because it was in an undated planner. So anyway, yeah, just writing it in. This is a dated planner, so I'm unlikely to make that mistake, but just in case it's there on the page, I know it's 2025. Then finally, I finished things out with the cards from the Annual Goals Toolkit. So these are on cardstock. They're a little bit thicker, and I think I'm going to stick these up on like my pin board or something. I haven't 100% decided. I did leave these a little bit more simple after way over decorating some of my goals pages, but again, my word of the year is balance, and then I copied onto that from my intentions page the same thing that I wrote about what my word means to me, which is allocating my time and energy in a way that allows me to nurture, grow, and enjoy all areas of my life, having a loving family, a thriving business, a well cared for home, and time to take care of my own needs and find joy. So that is what my word of the year means to me and my word of the year. And then on my personal mission statement, this I also used AI to write, which was really, really helpful. Went through like a couple of different ones that it fed me based on my word of the year and based on my goals, and then kind of arrived at this shorter one here and just kind of spliced a few things together. But I commit to creating a balanced life by designing schedules, routines, and systems that allow me to invest in all areas of my life in a way that brings me productivity, peace, and joy. So I really like that. That is the summation of all of my goals and kind of what I'm focusing on next year. All right, that is everything for this video and everything for my goals. So we've got goals spread number 1, goals spread number 2, plus my word of the year card and my mission statement. It feels so good to have this all down on paper and all ready to go for the new year. Up next for me in this planner, I'm going to be working on like a beginning of the year setup, thinking about that idea garden, bringing in some of the pages from the quarterly goal setting kit, putting together kind of a useful goal setting toolkit into my folio here, just kind of getting the planner all ready to go. And then of course it'll be time for January goals and January calendar. So stay tuned, so much more to come. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know where you're at with your goal setting in the comments below. Happy holiday season to everyone. Happy New Year. It's coming soon. As always, happy planning, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.